when we were on a walk in Los Angeles, I told him that I was in charge of the Bhakti program at that time, and I told him that about some new devotees that had joined. One gentleman had joined at the age of 53, and he was a PhD and also a priest, a Christian priest. And so I told Srila Prabhupada that he had joined, and Prabhupada was very pleased, and he said, you must take very good care of him, give him special treatment, special care, make sure he's comfortable, everything like that.
One of the last times I saw him at the airport, this was actually when he was leaving and he was not arriving. So when he was leaving, he had to wait for a little while, sitting in a chair and the devotees would sit around him very quietly, and we were just enjoying, seeing Srila Prabhupada. So when we got there, before he got to sit down, the devotees were chanting, big kirtan, and actually then he did sit down. He did sit down, and he had all these big guns sitting around him. I believe it was Brahmananda and some other, bodyguards, and not letting anybody get too close. There was this one older woman. I'd say we were all very young, so she was old. She was probably in her late 50s, and she always seemed a little bit, maybe a little nutty. She would come to the temple almost every day, and she had a white uniform on. We didn't know what she was. We didn't know if she was a hairdresser or a nurse or whatever. She always had white uniform on and white shoes, and she would come by and maybe once a week just give some little drop of toilet paper, just drop off some little condiments, things like that. Maybe she got them from where she worked. And she was a bit of a character, and she was there at the airport. And she was within probably about 4 feet or so away, and I saw she was anxious. She was very anxious. She wanted to get closer to Prabhupada, and she couldn't see very good. And so I was in front, and I was watching, and Prabhupada points to her, and he tells his disciple to move out of the way, get out of the chair, and let her sit down. And it was so nice to see, Prabhupada setting an example to, give the seat to this woman. And that was very wonderful to see.
There was, in Mayapur, I was acting as one of his guards. We used to take turns guarding Prabhupada's room. And sometimes the guards got the opportunity to go in with guests and sit down. Once, this was interesting to me, one very old sadhu came to see Srila Prabhupada. Not very well dressed, very old and poorly dressed. And he came in, and I came in with him, and we sat down. And it was just Prabhupada and this. And they spoke probably in Bengali. And I couldn't understand it. But then after some time, Prabhupada went and took some money and gave some rupees to the sadhu. And the sadhu thanked him and went out. So I don't know what they spoke, but that was interesting.
And then I remember one time in the airport, and so it's in my mind, it was TWA, and Prabhupada was sitting by himself. And I was thinking, oh my God, how could Prabhupada be by himself? So I stood there, I was thinking, well, let me guard Prabhupada, I'm going to guard him, so a woman's going to guard him. And all the sannyasis, they were all huddled. I guess there was a problem with the tickets. And they were all in a big huddle, and I was looking and I was thinking, why isn't anybody here? So I kind of stayed by Prabhupada, and he was so cute, he knew what, that I was, and he was saying, don't worry, I'm fine, don't worry. But I stayed close, and in a way I was doing Sankirtan too, because I was preaching to the people who were on that flight, and I was telling them how fortunate they were with pure devotee, and I was handing out back to Godheads, and I could see Prabhupada was very pleased that I was doing this just a tiny little service, but, I just felt so happy to just do anything for Prabhupada. And he was so appreciative.
Once we came to see Srila Prabhupada in Hyderabad after we'd been touring along the east coast of India. So Prabhupada called us into his room, And he was asking us how many sets of books we distributed, what did the professors think about the books. Then he told us that you should keep your health very good on traveling Sankirtan, and it's best if you don't eat any grains. Better just to eat vegetables and fruits, take milk products, and also nuts. And then he made a sign like that, cashew nuts. Every day like a Kadashi. In this way you can keep your health very strong.
We were doing Harinam. Prabhupada was still at the temple. We had organized a Harinam party with quite a large party, about 15 or 18 devotees. And there happened to be a big parade that day around through the downtown. So we were chanting, not in the parade, but through the crowds, and it was a very nice atmosphere. It was great. We had chanted so many times in Portland, and but suddenly, what seemed for no reason, the police came, and they just arrested us all and put us into vans and took us to jail. This had never been, we had never had that experience before. So we were in jail, and they said the bail is $50 per person if you want to get out. It was a Saturday. And the problem was that, the court wouldn't be seen until Monday. We couldn't be, our hearing wasn't, we weren't to be tried till Monday, so we would have to stay in jail till Monday unless we had $50 apiece to get out. Unfortunately, the temple had no money at that time, so we were stuck. And I was very sad, especially because I was supposed to organize all the programs for Srila Prabhupada there. So we were in a few hours, and then the warden came and said to me, "Are you such and such?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay, so you're bailed out." So I was bailed out, and then I was told that Srila Prabhupada gave the money to bail me out. And then when I got back to the temple, he called for me, and I went in to see him. And he said, we had to save at least one. And it was very touching for me. And then he asked about the situation. He said, "So, what happened?" I said, "Well, we were chanting, and they arrested us." And he said, "Yes, Lord Chaitanya also had problems with the Kazi, with the kirtan." He said, "But if they object to the mridangas and the kartals," he said, "you don't have to play the instruments. You can just clap your hands and chant Hare Krishna," like that. So that was another instruction about chanting.
And one time, it was whenever he was in the room, we were all happy. We could do anything. We were superhuman. We were in Vaikuntha. And one time in a class, he said, "So, if you chant one chapter of Bhagavatam in Sanskrit every day for 1 year, at the end of 1 year, you will all be Sanskrit scholars. You can do this?" "Yes, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada." "All right, you will do this?" "Yes, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada." "Okay, you will do," I think 3 times he said, you do this now. And we all said, "Yes." I've never met one person who's done this. But when he said to do it, it seemed really easy. One time, about 2 years later, I did it for 6 months. So maybe I'm half a Sanskrit scholar.
Once I went into Prabhupada's room, and he was sitting in the corner with his head in his hand like this. And he just sat there for a few minutes with a pained expression on his face. And then he looked up at me and he said, "This Bombay project is such a headache, it's such a headache." Then he paused and then he said, "But it is for Krishna, so it is all right."